Hello everyone. We'll continue our review of the Biology 3201 course with an examination of the neuron. The neuron being the cell that allows the nervous system to function. To be more specific, neurons provide both structural and functional purposes for the nervous system. In fact, they are indeed that very unit, structural and functional unit. In short, they are cells that send out and receive electrochemical signals to and from the brain, and there are about 100 billion of them in the brain. Now, unlike most other cells, neurons cannot regrow after damage. They are possible transmitting nerve signals to and from the brain at up to 200 miles per hour. And there are many different types of neurons. They vary in size from 4 microns to 100 microns in size, and their length varies from a fraction of an inch to several feet. The peripheral nervous system, which we talked about previously, consists of nerves or numerous neurons held together by connective tissue. The central nervous system is also made up of neurons. In fact, they contain 90% of the body's neurons are found in the central nervous system. Now, neurons consist of 3 basic parts: the cell body, dendrites, and axon. Dendrites are the primary site for receiving signals from other neurons. And depending on the neuron function, the number of dendrites can range from 1 to thousands. The cell body has a large centrally located nucleus. It is a cell. Like all cells, it would have a nucleus and a large nucleolus. Its cytoplasm contains many mitochondria, which indicates the energy requirements of the neuron, along with the Golgi complex and rough endoplasmic reticulum. As for the axon is a long cylindrical extension of the cell body that can range from 1 millimeter to 1 meter in length. What it does is it transmits waves of depolarization along its length, and at the end of the axon are structures that release chemicals, which we'll talk about a little later. At the end of the axon, we have the axon terminal. There are bulb-like ends of the axon. And wrapping around the axon are supplementary cells, support cells, called Schwann cells. What the Schwann cells do is they insulate cells around an axon. By insulating, it actually speeds up the waves of depolarization. It covers the axon with a fatty layer which we know as a myelin sheath. And each of the Schwann cells is separated by a gap which is termed the node of Ranvier. So to look at the axon itself, to look at what's happening here and the parts, the axon begins with projections called dendrites. These dendrites receive the initial impulse. The cell body contains a nucleus, nucleolus, the same as every other cell. One of the projections coming off of the cell body is much longer and more pronounced than others. This is the axon. Surrounding the axon are support cells called Schwann cells that provide an insulating myelin sheath. And between each of the Schwann cells is a gap. That gap is known as the node of Ranvier. At the end, the axon terminals, which contain buttons, synaptic knob, there are other terminology used as well, but the purpose of this is they will release chemicals called neurotransmitters which allow the signal to be passed along. A sample question from a previous public examination is worded as follows: which structure in the diagram below speeds the increase of a nerve transmission? Your choices are A, which are the dendrites, B, the soma, or the cell body, specifically the nucleus in the cell body. C, the end brush, the synaptic knobs, the axon terminals. And D, the Schwann cell. The dendrites receive the impulse, but they do not have a direct bearing on speed. B, the second choice made available in this question, is the nucleus. It serves the same purpose in the neuron as would the nucleus in any cell. But again, it has no bearing on speed of transmission. C, on the other hand, is the synaptic knobs, the axon terminals, the end brush. Your teacher may have used various terms for this. It contains neurotransmitters which allow for transmission between neurons. The correct choice in this case is D, the Schwann cell. The Schwann cell provides an insulating sheath, a myelin sheath to be exact, which allows for a faster rate of transmission. So the correct answer is indeed D. Again, for a previous public exam, which structure below is responsible for receiving information from another neuron? Your choices are A, dendrite, B, nucleus, C, cell cytoplasm, soma, and D, Schwann cell. The correct answer in this case, receiving information from another cell, would indeed be A. A receives information from adjacent cells. The signal is passed on and begins at the dendrite and follows through to the end brush. Now, we've spoken a bit about something called neuron transmission, how it passes down. We talked about how a myelinated axon is faster. The reason for this faster transmission is that a myelinated neuron enables nerve impulse to jump, hop if you will, down the nodes of rhombi to the next. This speeds up the wave of depolarization to about 120 meters per second. Many signals move only at 2 meters per second. This increased rate of transmission as a result of the hopping down the neuron length between nodes of rhombi is known as saltatory conduction. Schwann cells have a secondary function as well. Most mature neurons do not reproduce. They do not make copies of themselves. With the Schwann cell, if the outer layer of a Schwann cell is present in a neuron, the cell is capable of regenerating if the damage isn't too severe. If a neuron is cut, severed, the Schwann cell, the severed end, will grow a number of extensions, a number of sprouts, and the original axon will grow what's known as a regeneration tube from its neurolemma. If one of the sprouts, one of them, connects with the regeneration tube, the axon then can reform itself. Coincidentally, central nervous system neurons do not regenerate. They don't have the same degree of myelination, and this accounts for that. Now, as for neuron types fit into sensory neurons, which we've spoken about previously. They take information from a receptor to the central nervous system. Pain is one example. They do indeed require a strong stimulus to get started. Interneurons, on the other hand, they act as a link between the sensory, information coming in, and a motor neuron, information going out. It receives information from other interneurons and also from sensory neurons. Motor neurons, on the other hand, the third type, takes information from the central nervous system to an effector, such as a muscle or a gland. Thank you very much for your time and patience, and I trust this clip was helpful for you.